Wow, Metallica. Wow. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is the 10th studio album from Metallica and their first album in 8 years, following up the controversial release of Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic was released in 2008 during the height of the Loudness Wars. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, the Loudness Wars is the popular name given to the trend of increasing the volume levels of recorded music by compressing the audio until, of course, you have overcompressed it. At the time, there was a lot of pressure within the music industry to make music recordings louder and louder, to keep compressing them so that they would pop out of speakers when played on radio. The problem with this kind of escalation is that the more you compress the music recording, the more dynamic range you lose, and thus lose the excitement of the original recorded performance. Now, I called Death Magnetic controversial, not because of the music, but because of how over-compressed the initial 2008 pressings were. The initial run was slammed by critics and even fans for being unlistenable due to overcompression. Now, I have heard, but can't confirm, that the progression was then progressively backed off on all later pressings. Now, the one thing good about this incident is that it led to a loudness war backlash, and record labels started easing up on the compression, thus giving recorded music a chance to breathe again. So even though it's been 8 years, that sour note still hung over me as I approached the release of Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So I want to first state that I'm very happy to say that this is not the case with this album. Yes, this is metal, and many people will say, who cares? It's metal. Who cares if you overcompress it? But metal, when played by pros, is also nuanced. And all the nuance and emotion is on display in this album for you to hear and experience. On Hardwired to Self-Destruct, you feel the explosion of every bass and drum hit. You feel the passion of every guitar riff and the dark anger of Hetfield's vocals. Now, before I go any further, I should give full disclosure. I really don't see myself as a real Metallica fan. Don't take that last sentence the wrong way. I fully respect and get what Metallica has accomplished, and I understand their place in popular music history and culture. But prior to purchasing this album, I have only ever owned 2 other albums by Metallica. I've enjoyed the songs that I hear on the radio, but I really don't feel that this is enough to qualify me as a serious or real Metallica fan. At best, it qualifies me as a casual fan. So I think it's great when I come across an album by a longtime band that makes me want to start exploring their back catalog and thus serves as the gateway drug from being just a casual fan to a serious fan. And while I am probably not as familiar with Metallica's back catalog as I would like to be, I feel kind of okay going out on a limb and saying that this is some of the most technically complex music I have heard from them. The album is unrelenting in its assault, and I oftentimes say that you need to change things up about every 3rd or 4th song on your album, at least so that your album doesn't get to sound too stale, too boring. But Metallica manages to keep up the unrelenting pace all throughout Disc 1 until finally giving us a break on the last track entitled Halo on Fire. During the verse of this track, I hear James Hetfield sing in a way that I never have before. I've heard him do some more ballady, type of stuff, here and there on different Metallica songs. But on this track, it is probably the most un-Hetfield-like I have ever heard him. And it sounds really good. Now, once again, maybe I just need to be more familiar with the back catalog. But during these softer verses, he sings with a vocal smoothness that I have not previously heard from him. This track aside, the relentless pace continues till the very end of Disc 2. And yet, None of it gets old. I think what I find most notable about this album is just how young this band of veteran rockers comes off. I'm serious. The energy on this album is not to be believed. I really do feel that on this album, the band has managed to tap into the hunger that drove them in their youth and then combine it with the musical sophistication that comes from being music veteran. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is a relentless album, but within those tracks, there is varying levels of texture and nuance that keep each song fresh as you go from track to track to track. This is TJR. Have you listened to this album? What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Is there something else that I should have mentioned? I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Thanks as always for watching, and please subscribe to the channel. Bye-bye.